me this speak in this webinar. I would also like to thank Mrs. Rameshwari and Mr. Deepak Krishnamurthy for facilitating me in this webinar. So, give me a little time. I would like to share my screen, and then we will start with the webinar on new dimensions in child health nursing. Are you able to hear me?
We can. Audible.
Can you see my screen?
No, ma'am, not yet.
Uh,
No, not yet.
Okay. 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 Just a moment.
Okay, okay, fine.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Fine, fine.
I'm unable to open my PPT. Could you please?
Yes, ma'am. Will you mail us so that we will open it?
Yeah, yeah. Just a moment, please. Also to be a part of the caretaking activities of the child. So it also can be defined as the professional support to the child and its family through participation, engagement, and sharing in a context of empowerment and negotiation. Next slide, please. You have come to the previous slide, huh? Oh. Okay, so the key elements of family-centered care. It recognizes the family as a constant in the child's life. It facilitates true parent professional collaboration and not just coordination of services. It honors the racial, ethnic, religious, cultural, and socio-economic diversities of families. It recognizes family strength and differing ways of coping, shares unbiased information with parents on a continual basis for the purpose of supporting their needs and ability to make decisions with adequate information. It understands the developmental needs of children and families and incorporates these into the service system offered. It also provides continuous services in families until such time that the child or the family is no longer eligible for services, or families indicate that they no longer want or need the support provided. It provides comprehensive integrated services that include emotional and financial support for the family, as well as educational, therapeutic and medical support for the child. It also encourages family to family support and networking. It respects the family's right to refuse or postpone services offered and recommended. It also designs services that are responsive to family identified priorities and needs. It also designs accessible services that are flexibly scheduled in natural environment for optimal family participation and benefits to the child. Next slide, please. So now there are two basic concepts of family-centered care. One is the enabling and the second is the empowerment. Enabling means by we create an atmosphere for all the family members to actually display their present abilities and competencies and also to acquire new ones. So we enable them to acquire new ones that are necessary to meet the needs of the child and family. Then we have the next concept is empowerment. We also empower the family in such a way that the family maintains or acquires a sense of control over their family lives and acknowledge positive health behavior. Next slide, please. So these are few videos on various aspects of family-centered newborn care. I'll play the first one. Actually, I've been given 40 minutes to speak, so I'll limit the videos. I'll just show you a part of the first video and continue with the next topic. So you can take down the link. It is available on YouTube. You can look at how family-centered newborn care has been initiated at RML Hospital of Delhi. Could you please open that first video, please? Has it opened? Hello, has it opened?
Yes, ma'am. Is it visible?
No, it's not visible to me.
Just a minute, ma'am.
It's still not visible to me.
Not visible, ma'am.
No. It's okay. I think the initial aspect. Okay.
Is it visible, ma'am, now?
No, no,
Not visible.
no.
Possibly only PPTs probably we can share.
Okay, it is visible to you all, no, and the participants.
Just I'll check out
Okay.
madam the participants.
So now you got a little bit of a feel of what family-centered newborn care is, how the family is being actually initiated into helping in the care of the child. So, slide please.
Yes, just
Yeah, next
Is-
next slide. It is visible, but next slide.
visible, madam, now?
Yeah, that's it. So we go to the next dimension of child health nursing care and the recent developments. it's all about atraumatic care. Atraumatic care is the provision of therapeutic care in settings by personnel and through use of interventions that eliminate or minimize the psychological and physical distress experienced by the children and their families in the healthcare system. So pain and trauma is something which even a newborn or a preterm can experience, and it is not just experienced but it is also remembered, and later on it may translate into psychological problems. So we do not want our children to go back home and have psychological problems, and that is why we institute uh, as much as possible atraumatic care in our units. So the next slide, please. So uh, this has many aspects. The therapeutic care, it covers prevention, diagnosis, treatment or palliation of chronic or acute condition. So in the picture, you can see how in the ward, all the palliative care patients are sitting together and playing the carom board while they are on treatment. Next slide, please. So the setting here in therapy, atraumatic care means the setting could be the home as well as the hospital. So at home, also the environment has to be safe, and it has to be enabling for the child, as well as in the hospital also. The child should feel safe, the child should feel confident, and the child should feel enabled in the hospital, and a child also should feel in control of situations that are controllable by him or her. So to the next slide, please. Now to the personnel in atraumatic care, this includes anyone involved in direct therapeutic care. In this context, it also means the nurses, but whereas not just the nurses, all the healthcare professionals have to know as well as practice atraumatic care. Next slide, please. Interventions in atraumatic care means we have to use psychological approaches while preparing children for procedures. We can, in physical interventions, we also allow parents to room in with the child, so the child does not feel threatened. The next slide, please. Uh, yeah, therefore the psychological distress actually includes anxiety. Child may exhibit anxiety, fear, anger, disappointment, sadness, shame, and guilt. Whereas the physical distress, next slide, please. Physical distress actually translates into sleeplessness, immobility, disturbing sensory stimuli like pain, uh, temperature extremes, loud noises, bright lights, or darkness. So these are the signs of physical distress. Now the goals of atraumatic care is, the main goal is to do no harm. So we use three principles that help us to achieve this goal. And the principles are to prevent or minimize child separation from family. It promotes a sense of control, and it also prevents or minimizes bodily injury and pain. So these are the three principles in do no harm of atraumatic care. Next slide, please. So the next aspect of new dimension of child health nursing is evidence-based practice. So evidence-based practice actually helps us in ascertaining certain standard operating protocols so that we can make it into the system of the healthcare. So evidence-based practice in nursing is a way of providing nursing care that is guided by the integration of the best available scientific knowledge with nursing expertise. This approach requires uh, This approach requires nurses to critically assess relevant scientific data or research evidence and to implement high quality intervention for their nursing practice. So they first try to find what is workable, and then they integrate it as part of standard operating protocols. Next slide, please. So the key elements of evidence-based practice are always question current practice as nursing professionals, integrate EBP as higher standard mission philosophy and include competencies for EBP. EBP mentors for skill and knowledge availability to others to provide and help. Then tools also to enhance EBP. Example, meetings, educational meetings, classroom time, access to internet, etc. Higher level support and ability for leaders to model valued EBP skills. EBP also recognizes the nursing personnel should recognize the use of EBP often. Whenever we are being taught any procedure or skills, we must find out whether it is evidence-based practice or not. Especially in COVID times, there is a lot of information that is floating in the net. We have to find out whatever new information that we are getting, is it evidence-based or not? Next slide, please. The outcomes of EBP is it improves clinical expertise, because always whenever we are doing certain procedures on some patients, we are also asking a question whether that particular procedure helps the patient or not. And then it ultimately leads us to best research evidence, and it also helps in patient values and preferences also. So we keep in mind the patient's value system and preferences also. And even if the patient chooses not to take that particular treatment or procedure, we need to actually respect the patient's wants and desires. Next slide, please. So this is the evidence hierarchy. So on the top, we find the meta-analysis. So meta-analysis is a study of many studies together, and we actually formulate SOPs, and then we test it, try it, and then make it into standard operating protocols. Next slide, please. So this is a link. We won't open the link, please. This is a link to the SOPs on newborn care, which is evidence-based. And this is found on www.newbornwhocc.org. This is on the AIIMS website. So all the SOPs regarding newborn care, which is evidence-based, is found on AIIMS website or this website. Next slide, please. So the next aspect of new dimension in child health nursing is case management and definition. Case management is a collaborative process that assesses plans, implements, coordinates, monitors, and evaluates the options and services required to meet the client's health and human service needs. It is characterized by advocacy, communication, and resource management, and promotes quality and cost-effective intervention and outcomes. So, in simple words, a group of patients having similar diagnosis is managed by a team of healthcare professionals, and then they sit down and also have problem-solving techniques which are actually put into practice in case management. Next slide, please. So in case management, the team consists of a case manager, the client himself or herself, or here in child health nursing, the client would be a child as well as the family. Then the client support system, it is a family, friends, and caregivers. Then we have healthcare and service providers. Example, the clinicians and the peer representative. The peer representative means, especially in the private hospitals, where the clients come with insurance coverage, the one who pays their amount is also included in case management team. So next slide, please. So the benefits of case management is it has improved patient and family satisfaction. It decreases fragmentation of care and ability to describe and measure outcomes in a homogeneous group of patients. So say, for example, a group of children with type 1 diabetes mellitus is uh, nursed together or cared for together by a particular team. So that's the meaning of a homogeneous group of patients. Next slide, please. The role of case managers are, they have responsibility and accountability for a particular group of patients, and then they use a system of critical care path derived from standards of care, and the critical paths include guidelines for care. They could have case management plans and care paths. Next slide, please. So what are critical paths or care maps or case management? These are multidisciplinary plans. So this is not a care plan. It is different from a care plan because the care path or the care map includes the plan of all the team members, not just the nursing team. They can be confined to inpatient care or can include continuum of care, including home care. These are the tools for case management. Next slide, please. This is the example of a clinical care path of a child who is admitted in the ward with type 1 diabetes. Next slide, please. Now to the next aspect of new dimensions in child health nursing is developmentally supportive care. So here we give the we promote the womb-like growth. So what is developmentally supportive care? We provide a structured care environment which supports, encourages, and guides the developmental organization of the premature or critical ill infant. In simple words, DSC is to reduce the stress of NICU and promote womb-like growth. Next slide, please. Methods of DSC. The first sense that matures in a child is the tactile sense. So a balance is sought between stimulating correctly by prone position, nesting, swaddling, and we also give the child a facilitated tuck and massage therapy and protection from overstimulation such as pain. Swaddling and facilitated tuck also reduces pain and promotes development. Massage therapy promotes neurobehavior, weight gain, sleep, and it reduces pain, stress, and hospital stay. A newborn, including a preterm, feels and responds to and remembers pain. Remember this always, because we cannot continuously do painful procedures on a preterm or, for that matter, any newborn babies, because they not only experience pain but they also remember pain. Exposure to repeated pain could affect the developing brain adversely. Next slide, please. So these are some pictures of how we facilitate the tactile sense of the child. In the first picture, we can see nesting. In the second picture, we can see the facilitated tuck. And in the third picture, we can see how swaddling helps the child. And the fourth picture is showing KMC, which actually stimulates all the different senses, that is the tactile, the olfactory, the gustatory, and the sense of vision. So next slide, please. Prevention and minimization of pain is possible, and prevention is better than treatment. So protection from pain is a vital component of DSC. After the tactile sense, the olfactory and gustatory sense are the next senses. And I already talked about KMC, plus the tactile sense and the olfactory and the gustatory sense can be stimulated also by non-nutritive sucking, which actually stimulates all these senses. And non-nutritive sucking reduces the length of hospital stay, and it also improves feeding. Next slide, please. Actually, I'm going very fast because there are a lot of topics to be covered under this, and we'll take questions in the end. Please bear with me. The next system to develop is the auditory system. As this is a late developing sense, the preterm needs to be protected from noise. So noise affects physiological variables, reduces sleep, and increases stress. Therefore, it is important to do environmental and behavioral modifications to protect neonates in NICU from noise. So how can we do this? What are the environmental modification? The environmental modification can be to put the alarms at a low decibel. Behavioral modification by healthcare professionals. We should not stand at the corner of the NICU or PICU, NICU, and start shouting or loudly taking the names of our colleagues and calling them, and so on. So music therapy also helps in pacification. So mother singing in a soft voice to her baby helps to reduce stress and stimulate appropriately. Next slide, please. The last developing sense is vision, and the NICU can be harmful for visual development because of exposure to bright light, and this actually interferes with normal endogenous brain cell activity and results in sleep deprivation. So the best form of DSE is KMC. It is exceptional as it provides an appropriate balance between the under-stimulated tactile proprioceptive system and the overwhelmed later developing sensory modalities. The next slide, please. With this background of the developing senses, the 5 core components of DSE are pain management. We provide the child with protected sleep. We also provide developmentally supportive activities of daily living, like massaging, sponging, etc. And family-centered care and providing a healing environment. So always the family is included in the NICU so that they enable the child in recuperating fast, and they also feel confident about the care of the child. Next slide, please. So we need to remember that DSC is a continuous process and not an end. It starts right at birth of the infant. The infants are unique and display wide variety of behaviors. DSC has to be individualized for the infants. Next slide, please. So now to the revised immunization program. I'm here just to clear the cobwebs. Clear the cobwebs means clear the confusion. I don't think I will go through the expanded immunization program or the IAP immunization program. We will discuss more about immunizations in adolescence, because that is the in thing in child health nursing nowadays. And I have slides. We'll quickly go through those slides. Next slide, please. So this is the national immunization schedule. You all are familiar with this, so we won't discuss in detail in this. Next slide, please. Next slide, next slide. Yeah, this is the IAP immunization. Sorry, this is the adolescent immunizations that are covered for all the adolescents. So from 10 to 16 years, the booster dose of TT, TD, and Tdap is given to the adolescent. Then we can also give rubella as part of MMR or monovalent vaccines to girls at 12 years of age. MMR, one dose at 12 to 13 years of age if the child has not received MMR earlier. Hepatitis B, 3 doses in case it was not given earlier. Typhoid vaccine, single dose given every 3 years. Varicella, 2 doses at 1 month intervals. Hepatitis A, 2 doses at 0 and 6 months interval, single dose in live vaccine. Then we have the HPV vaccine. There are 2 doses at 0 to 6 months given before 15 years of age at 0 and 6 months, and actually 3 doses after 15 years of age at 0 months and 1 month, and then at 6 months. Next slide, please. Now we are entering into another aspect of child health nursing, that is integration of quality improvement into child health nursing. Every day the things are changing, and we need to keep up to date with knowledge and skill. And what skills are very important for the children in the hospital as well as the community is what quality decides, and then they actually make it into standard operating procedures or standards, and then they implement it in the ward. So how we can integrate quality improvement into child health nursing is what we're going to see now. Next slide, please. So meaning of quality improvement. In healthcare, quality improvement is a framework we use to systematically improve the way care is delivered to patients. By improving processes, if we improve the outcome, by improving the process, we improve the outcome in our patients. So this is the meaning of quality improvement. Next slide, please. So there are 6 domains of healthcare quality or quality improvement. So whatever care we give, it has to be safe, it has to be effective, it has to be patient-centered, it has to be given timely, it has to be efficient, and then it has to be equitable. So these are the 6 domains of healthcare quality which we have to keep in mind whenever we are delivering care to our children in the wards, or for that matter, in the community, in their homes. Next slide, please. So what is the difference between quality improvement and quality assurance? So quality assurance is individual focused. Individual focus means healthcare professional focused, whereas quality improvement actually focuses on the systems. What are the systems in place? The infrastructure, the procedures, the standard operating procedures, etc. So that we deal with that in quality improvement. Then the quality assurance deals more with the perfection myth, whereas quality improvement understands that to err is human, and every mistake that a healthcare professional makes becomes a learning opportunity for the healthcare professional as well as the healthcare team. Then the solo practitioners in quality assurance, the healthcare professionals are solo practitioners, whereas In quality improvement, it is teamwork. Then we have peer review. Peer review is ignored in quality assurance, whereas peer review is very valued. And the last one I have already discussed with, in quality assurance, any errors are punished, whereas errors are seen as opportunities for learning. Next slide, please. So the model of improvement. So any improvement, we have to have an aim. We first have to identify problems, and then we have to prioritize the problem. And then after prioritizing the problem, we determine the aims with specific outcomes. Okay. So when we formulate an aim, we are trying to address like what we are trying to accomplish. Then we also have to identify the measure. How are we going to measure the processes and the outcomes? Next is, what are the changes we want to make? And how are we going to study the changes that we are going to make? That happens in multiple PDSA cycles, the plan, do, study, and act cycle. In the planning, each change idea is brought forth, and we test it in a shift or in 2 shifts or 3 shifts. And then we, in the do part, we expand it for other health team members. And then in the study, we look at what worked and what didn't work. And we also go deep into what didn't work is why it didn't work also. And then whatever worked, we in the act, we adopt. If we have to modify that particular process, then we adapt. Or if we were not able to practice that particular process, then we abandon. So this is the model for quality improvement. Next slide, please. I want to request you, I will need more time for my talk. Can I take 15 minutes more in my talk?
You can, ma'am.
Okay. So, thank you. So, standards of improving the quality of care. So, in any quality care, we have to have certain standards that are put forth, and these standards of quality of pediatric care and health facilities form part of the normative guidance for improving the quality of maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health care. So the WHO has put forward certain standards of care. So the standards were developed in the best interest of children in recognition of the fact that the requirements are different from those of adults, and to ensure the right to high quality health care. The standards are applicable to all facilities that provide health care to the children and adolescents. Next slide, please. So, standard 1 of child health care is every child receives evidence-based care and management of illness according to WHO guidelines. So these are all standards according to WHO guidelines. So there are many quality statements. Since I have already mailed the PPT to Deepak, you can go in detail on all these things. I think I'll just read 1 or 2 of the quality statements. So the first quality statement is all children are triaged and promptly assessed for emergency and priority signs to determine whether they require resuscitation and receive appropriate care according to the WHO guideline. So when a child comes to the emergency, all children undergoes a triaging process so that they are assessed promptly, and if the child needs emergency care, the child can be cared for, or otherwise the child can be guided and treated accordingly. So I think I'll go to the next slide. You have understood there are many quality statements. So there are 15 quality statements in standard 1. and we follow the quality improvement cycle. That is, identify the problem in the, say for example, if triaging is not done, then we ask why triaging is not done, and then we form a SOP for triaging which is applicable to our institution, and then we test it whether it works. Okay, and that is, we actually do the PDSA cycle, and then we actually act according to whatever processes have been identified. And next slide, please. You can see all the standard quality statements related to the first standard. Next slide, please. So there are 15 quality statements in the one standard. So the next standard statement, next slide, please. Standard 2 is the health information system ensures the collection, analysis, and use of data to ensure early, appropriate action to improve the care of every child. So the first, in this, there are 3 quality statements. So quality statement 1 says every child has a complete, accurate, standardized, up-to-date medical record, which is accessible through their care, on discharge, and on follow-up. And so on. There are quality statements, and these statements are worked on in each of the institutions wherever there is childcare facilities, and then they formulate a particular performance standard, and uh, then they have standard operating procedures formulated so that everybody can give care to children in similar manner. Next slide, please. Standard 3 is every child with conditions that cannot be managed effectively with the available resources receives appropriate and timely referral with seamless continuity of care. So this is a third standard, and I'll just read the first quality statement related to this standard, that every child who requires referral receives appropriate pre-referral care, and the decision to refer is made without delay. So this is standard 3. Next slide, please. Standard 4 is communication with children and their families is effective with meaningful participation and a response to their needs and preferences. So again, quality statement of standard 4 is all children and their carers are given information about the child's illness and care effectively so that they understand and cope with the condition and the necessary treatment. So there are 4 quality statements which needs to be worked on in any childcare facility, and then SOPs have to be made. Next standard, next slide, please. Every child's rights are respected, protected, and fulfilled at all times during care without discrimination. So again, quality statement number 1 is all children have the right to access healthcare services with no discrimination of any kind. So this is how all the standard statements are there. And again, as I said, I don't want to repeat it again and again. And that these are the statements that every healthcare facility will work on, and they will make SOPs. Next standard, please. Next slide. All children and their families are provided with educational, emotional, and psychological support that is sensitive to their needs and strengthens their capability. So quality statement number 1, all children are allowed to be with their carers, and the role of carers is recognized and supported at all times during care, including rooming in during child's hospitalization. Next slide, please. For every child, this is standard 7, for every child, competent, motivated, empathetic staff consistently available to provide routine care and management of common childhood illness. So again, quality statement in this standard is all children and their families have access at all times to sufficient health professionals and support staff for routine care and management of childhood illness. So coming to the next standard, next slide, please. Standard 8 is the health facility has an appropriate child-friendly physical environment with adequate water, sanitation, waste management, energy supply, medicines, medical supplies, and equipment for routine care and management of common childhood illness. So this is the 8th standard, and quality statement is children are cared for in a well-maintained, safe, secure physical environment with an adequate energy supply and which is appropriately designed, furnished, and decorated to meet their needs, preferences, and developmental age. This would also include, when we talk about furnished and decorated, the environment will be child friendly. Next slide, please. So this is the framework of improving quality of pediatric care. So the health system has quality care, and how does quality care happen in the health system is by provision of care in evidence-based practices, actionable information systems, as well as functioning referral systems. Then we have the experience of care by the child and the parents will be in terms of effective communication, meaningful participation, respect, protection, and fulfillment of child's rights, emotional and psychological support is given, competent, motivated, empathetic human resources are there, and essential child and adolescent friendly physical resources are there. This leads to individual and facility level outcomes. What are the outcomes they are able to achieve is coverage of key practices, and it also helps in child and family centered outcomes. So that is about how we integrate it. This is a very small portion that I've shared with you. This is all from WHO recommendations, and these can be taken up as part of the standard protocols in every healthcare facility and see how we can improvise it and use it in our healthcare facility. Next slide, please. Now to the next aspect of new dimensions of child health is reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health. And since we are talking about child health nursing, I will only talk about newborn, child and adolescent health. So this is called RMN C, A, H and N. Okay, this is the latest by NRHM. And this is as part of health goals under NRHM as well as Millennium Development Goals, that is MDG 4 and 5. In the past 7 years, innovative strategies evolved under the national program to deliver evidence-based intervention to various population groups. Next slide, please. So this pie diagram shows the causes of under 5 child deaths in India, and these are all preventable. We can see that in 2010, there were 52% of neonatal death, and maximum were due to preterm births, 8% were due to pneumonia, 10% was due to asphyxia, 8% was due to sepsis, which again can be prevented, 5% due to congenital anomalies, and others 2%, and 1% attributed to diarrhea in neonates, whereas 11% attributed to diarrhea in older children and children up to 5 years of age. 15% again attributed to under 5s for pneumonia, HIV, AIDS, and malaria attributed to 0%. Injuries leading to 4% of deaths. Meningitis leading to 2% of deaths, and measles. And therefore, this RMNC AH and N program has been started by NRHM, as well as it is part of the MDG goals 3 and 4. Next slide, please. So we have newborn and child care. So in this RMN CH, RMN CAH and N. So the priority interventions in this are home-based newborn care and prompt referral, facility-based care of sick newborn, then integrated management of common childhood illness, diarrhea, pneumonia, and malaria, child nutrition and essential micronutrient supplements, immunizations, and early detection and management of defects at birth, deficiencies, diseases, and disabilities in children from 0 to 18 years. Next slide, please. So again, in adolescence, the priority interventions were adolescent nutrition, iron and folic acid supplementation to every adolescent, facility-based adolescent reproductive and sexual health services. Then we have information and counseling on adolescent sexual reproductive health and other health issues, menstrual hygiene, and preventive health checkups. Next slide, please. So I actually made many slides, but I deleted many because of lack of time. So now we have finished RMNC, RMNCAH and N. Okay, so now we go to COVID-19 and children. The latest in COVID-19 and children. Next slide, please. So we look at programmatic activities. We look at the containment and buffer zone. Then we also look beyond buffer zone and green zone care. So in programmatic activities, we have care of sick newborn, follow-up of SNCU discharges, and family participatory care. So we give services to sick newborns irrespective of their COVID status. Should be provided in the nearest SNCU and NBSUs. Also, proper referral arrangement should be ensured. Routine SNCU follow-up through teleconsultation. However, sick newborn showing danger signs should be referred to nearest SNCU with proper referral arrangement. Family participatory care is suspended during this COVID times because of spread of infection to all the newborns in-house if there is a crowd of people there. But however, the mothers are allowed inside the essence. Next slide, please. So programmatic activities here is home-based newborn care and home-based young child care is continued, and HBNC and HBYC services should be provided through teleconsultation. And teleconsultation, I would say it can be done by a nurse, whereas telemedicine has to be done by a neonatologist as far as newborn care is concerned. Then house-to-house visits conducted by the ASHA workers, etc., are not should not be utilized, but whatever they want to ask, they can do through teleconsultations. And COVID warriors may be trained if required. Beyond buffer zone and green zone, HBNC and HBYC visits should be continued as per guideline. Next slide, please. Now coming to the RBSK, the Rashtriya Bal Swasthya Karyakram. So this is newborn screening should be done at all healthcare facilities where deliveries have taken place. Screening of children through mobile health teams. This should be deferred. District early intervention centers services should be provided on demand to walk-in beneficiaries in facilities. Then treatment of children with 4Ds, that is defects at birth, disease deficiency, and developmental delays, including disability, should be continued in all designated hospitals. So when it happens to beyond buffer zone and green care area, it is screening of children through mobile health teams and should be referred till school and AWCs open, the Anganwadi centers reopen. And the DEIC, the District Early Intervention Center, should continue supporting children for management of 4Ds. Next slide, please. In the management of SAM, children with complications at NRC, that is the Nutritional Rehabilitation Center, services to sick SAM should be provided in the nearest NRC. Proper referral arrangement should be ensured. Routine follow-up through teleconsultation should be provided. House-to-house visit conducted by health workers and COVID workers for COVID purpose should be utilized to inquire about services required for children, and linkage to the required service should be provided. Then we have beyond buffer zone and green zone care. It is management of sick SAM children should be continued as per existing guidelines. Next slide, please. Now, specific guidance for newborn and child health services are mother and baby should be nursed together as far as possible, and breastfeeding to be initiated within 1 hour of delivery, irrespective of COVID status. However, the mother should put on a face mask and practice hand hygiene before each feeding. Plus, she has to practice respiratory hygiene also. Next slide, please. Now to birth dose vaccination. So when a child is born in the hospital or in an institution, the birth dose vaccination will be continued in the facility itself, whereas immunization services on demand to walk-in beneficiary facilities should be provided. No outreach sessions will be done. Then there will be no active mobilization. Actually, the ASHA workers are also going from house to house to do the immunization for those children who are not getting immunization. With all whatever PPE that is required, they wear the PPE and then they go and do the immunization. Next slide, please. So in pandemic and adolescence, specific guidance for adolescent health services. This is to address anxiety and psychosocial issues among adolescents, peer-based counseling, teleconsultation, helpline to be initiated by involving adolescent-friendly health clinic counselor. So that is about pandemic and the COVID pandemic and the adolescent. Next slide, please, regarding COVID pandemic. Infection among adolescents of COVID-19. Adolescents and young individuals are likely to be carriers of COVID-19 since they are more likely to be involved in outdoor activities, local and overseas travels for study, business, or work. Although young population seems to be less vulnerable than adults to COVID-19, children and adolescents have been disproportionately impacted psychologically and manifesting behavioral problem more than the impact of COVID-19. As part of the disease, the impact has translated into psychologically disturbing problems as well as behavioral problems. Next slide, please. So the clinical features of COVID-19 in adolescents. The most common presenting symptoms are dry cough, fever, and expectoration. The typical laboratory indicators are decreased white blood cell count, decreased lymphocyte count, decreased platelet count, increased lactase dehydrogenase, and increased C-reactive protein. However, only 50% of adolescents usually show ground glass opacity on chest CT scan. It has been observed that adolescents usually have a longer incubation period, indicating the need for longer period for medical observation or isolation. The shorter serial interval signifies that transmission can rapidly spread from younger patients to their closer contacts. Next slide, please. And the 5 key action areas that can guide in the development of an adolescent-focused and inclusive COVID-19 response. So the services that we give to the adolescents are related to health are plans need to be sensitive to adolescent-specific healthcare, including sexual and reproductive health, mental health, and psychosocial support. Services related to education is home-based distance learning modules may be tailored. Something else has come into this. Hello. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Just hold on. We're doing it.
Yeah.
Somebody actually it is connecting to YouTube channel, madam. Just
okay.
So we request participants just 2 minutes. Is connecting to YouTube.
Somebody else has come into
Yes,
the
yes,
meeting,
yes.
I think. So.
Now is it visible, madam?
Yeah, it is visible. Yeah. And yeah, the next slide. So sorry.
Okay, this is the one.
Yeah, the next slide. Yeah. Yeah, this one. So economic services is access to goods and basic life services need to be maintained to tide over this economic crisis. Next slide, please. We also have to look at adolescent participation to response in COVID-19. So we need to encourage information sharing that is accessible both online and offline. Also, young people can be engaged in assessing the impact of COVID-19 on their communities or as volunteers for mass education. And this they can do it online through the internet. The spread of inaccurate information needs to be checked and social stigma confronted by effective engagement of adolescents and young people. Next slide, please. We also build their capacity of youth-led organization and COVID-19 response coordination can be a great asset to the government. So government can also have capacity building of youth-led organization via online sources, and adolescents can be used as a great asset to assist the government in the various activities that they are doing in terms of COVID-19. Then we have resources that are programs and proposals need to be co-designed with adolescents and youth groups, and where possible, appropriate funding must be provided, which is reliable, transparent, sustained, and flexible. Last but not the least, adolescents can be utilized for generating data and compiling data for monitoring the health and socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. So lastly, I would like to end by saying 253 million adolescents are there in India with less susceptibility for severe COVID-19 infections. And they can be a great resource in this pandemic response. So, thank you. This is all about newer dimensions in child health nursing. Thank you once again for the opportunity.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I took a lot of time, but there was so much content also.
No, it was really very informative. So I'm just closing the shares. Yes, ma'am. Just we have just few minutes, to take some questions from the
Yeah.
audience. Madam, actually, there is a question from an audience. A child who is COVID positive is in a facility center in isolation along with mother as she is COVID negative. Is there any provision made for children to in isolation to reduce the hospital-related stress and anxiety? Roaming in concept in pandemic when the mother is positive. Kindly explain. I think, madam, can you be able to share this chat?
Share this chat.
Yes, can you able to visualize? I just made it.
No, I can. Zoom group chat is open, but I
Yes.
can't see that question.
Wait, I'll post it once again.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, now it's posted.
Actually, I still can't see it. So, okay, now I can see it. Yeah. A child means what is the age of the child?
They are not mentioned the child name.
Okay. Okay. Depends on the child's age. What you want to ask that what are the provisions made for children in isolation to reduce their hospital related stress and anxiety? Yes, there are psychologists available in the hospital. They wear their PPE and they come and deal with them. Plus there is teleconsultations with psychologists, and that provision is open in many government as well as private facilities.
So, is any other questions from the audience? Just one more question, ma'am. Is it visible, ma'am?
A child who is COVID positive is in a facility center in isolation along with mother as she is COVID negative. Is there any provision made for children? No. This is the same question.
No, next question.
Okay, the mother is COVID positive at that time, the newborn can live with the mother or not. Yes, the child can live with the mother. I already spoke about that in the previous slide. The newborn is kept with the mother, and the mother has to wear the mask as well as uh, practice hand hygiene, as well as practice respiratory hygiene. But if, again, depends on the mother's sickness level. If the mother is very sick, then obviously the mother cannot look after the baby. Then mother and the child will be separated till such time that the mother is okay.
One more question, ma'am. I think you can see.
Separation anxiety of 1 year old when mother is in hospital and baby is in a relative's house. Again, they can do a teleconsultation and the psychologist will help them in tackling this.
One more question from next.
There is no chance of COVID through breast milk. There is no evidence as such. On the contrary, the breast milk has antibodies, enough antibodies for the baby to fight against COVID-19 infection. That is why we say we must give breast milk to the child, even if the mother is COVID positive.
Okay, ma'am. I think we came to the end of the session. I think there is one more question. How to address mobile addiction due to online classes?
Yeah, we have to give them time. We have to, the parents have to actually look after the children, and most of the parents are at home, so we can make a timetable for the child. And don't be very strict with the children, but we must, in a friendly manner, help them to adhere to the timetable. That is how we address mobile addiction. So maybe we don't give mobile for the whole day, etc. Online classes, after that, you have to put your mobile shut. You can give them some other activities to do, or even they can help in the household chores, that whatever the parents are doing nowadays, because of lack of maids, etc. The parents end up doing everything themselves, but they can involve the children in small chores. This is how we can distinguish the mobile addiction.
Yes, sir. Just we are getting the appreciation for your session.
Thank you.
I don't think so. Any questions from the participants? Yes, fine. So once again, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You want to say something?
I was thinking. I hope people have understood what I said.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely, it was so informative, and have shared a lot of new dimensions in child health nursing. And definitely, it was benefited to many of our participants. And once again, I thank you, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time. And also, I thank all the delegates, for attending the complete sessions. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anil sir, for giving me this opportunity. Looking forward to working with you.
Yes, ma'am. So definitely, we'll come up with the next sessions further. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, one and all.
Okay.
We are ending the session.
Okay. Okay.